The Saturn return. When it is, what it means, and what to expect. My name's Donna Page. Thank you for joining me. My website is Loving Light Astrologer. Okay, the Saturn return. In our life, we should have 3 of them if we live into our 90s, up to 90. The first one will happen between the age of 27 and 30, depending on how fast or slow Saturn was the day you were born. The Saturn return is a traditional time to get real about life. What is it that I really want? When you read about Saturn, you might hear these things as the taskmaster, or hard times, or being responsible, or if you don't do what's right, you'll pay for it. And really the Saturn return, the first Saturn return, is a time of looking at getting real, being responsible. But what does that word mean? It's really about being responsible, being able to respond to the call within to be true to yourself. Now, wherever Saturn is in your own chart, it will be different. So if Saturn, when you were born, was in a sector of your chart that represents relationships, then you might decide, it's like, okay, it's time for me to get real about what I want in a relationship. I don't want this person, let me get rid of them, and then make a commitment to somebody else. Then it can be a time of commitment. Let's move in together, let's get married, and it can be a time of saying, hey, this isn't working for me. If Saturn is in the sector of your chart that represents your career, you could look at like, why am I doing this job? I don't like this job. This isn't what I want to do for the next 30 years. The next time Saturn comes around. And it's you think about, well, what else can I do? And you take some action. Saturn wants action to be true to yourself. And if you were born with Saturn in a place of the chart that is about home, you might move. I don't want to live here. It's time for me to move. If you were born with Saturn in the 5th house, it can be that you think about having a child. So it all depends, but the most important thing to remember when you have a Saturn, your first Saturn return, that ignoring Saturn, and what I mean by ignoring it, ignoring the voice within that says, I want something different. It's time for me to be true to what I feel deep inside that I know is my path. We can ignore it, and if we do ignore it, then what can come around is that when we have a second Saturn return 30 years later, we can look back and go, why didn't I make those changes when I had a chance? Why didn't I? And there can be some regrets. So ultimately, Saturn, even if the changes take effort, take time, require a plan of action, it is about living a life without regrets. Thank you for tuning in. And again, my name's Donna Page. I appreciate you subscribing and all that good stuff. My website's Loving Light Astrologer.